They say the world has gotten smaller. Flights connect continents. Phones connect people. Deliveries arrive the next day. But there are still places on Earth where none of that matters. Places where help isn't a phone call. It isn't an ambulance. It isn't a guarantee. It's a weather decision. And at the top of the planet, where the map starts to look like it ran out of ink, there's a military outpost, so isolated that the word remote feels like an insult to what it really is. This is Canadian Forces Station Alert, the most northerly permanently inhabited place on Earth, about 817 kilometers from the geographic North Pole. And up here, life runs on one brutal rule. If something goes wrong, the sky decides whether you get rescued. Because in the high Arctic, the environment doesn't care about your plans. It doesn't care about your schedule. It doesn't care about your body. It only cares about physics. And today, Nkeoma Documentary TV is taking you inside the most isolated military base on Earth, not to glorify danger, not to chase conspiracy, and not to play politics, but to answer one simple question. How do human beings survive in a place where help can't always reach you? And before this ends, you'll understand why the scariest thing up here isn't the cold. It's what isolation does to the mind when the world goes dark. Why Nkeoma Documentary TV made this. At Nkeoma Documentary TV, we chase the hidden corners of reality, the places that don't show up in your daily life. The locations you scroll past on a map because they look empty. The stories that prove how thin the line is between comfort and survival. Because the modern world runs smoothly for most people, only because somewhere, far away, small groups of professionals keep critical systems alive under extreme conditions. CFS Alert is one of those places. A dot on the map that demands everything from the people inside it. And once you see what life is like at Alert, you'll never look at your own hard days the same way again. The map doesn't prepare you. Let's start with the first shock, the location. Alert sits on the northeastern tip of Ellesmere Island, in Nunavut, deep in Canada's high Arctic, near roughly 82 degrees north latitude. Most people can't picture that, so here's the simplest way to feel it. Alert is so far north that parts of Europe can be closer to it than major Canadian cities. The closest settlement is Grise Fjord, roughly 725 kilometers away. And that distance is not a highway drive. It's ice, mountains, ocean, wind, a landscape where getting there is already a mission. Now ask yourself something. If you lived in a place where the nearest community is hundreds of kilometers away, what happens when the weather turns violent? Because at Alert, weather isn't background. Weather is the gatekeeper. The first enemy, time without light. In most of the world, time is kept by light. Morning means something. Sunset means something. The day has edges. But at Alert, the sky breaks those rules. In the summer, the sun can stay above the horizon for months. And in the winter, the sun can disappear in a way your brain is not built to handle. From around October to early March, Alert can go through a long stretch with no direct sunlight. Not short days. No direct sunlight. That means you can wake up in darkness, work in darkness, eat in darkness, sleep in darkness. And after enough time, your mind starts doing something strange. It stops believing in tomorrow, because tomorrow looks exactly like today. And when you remove light from a human life for long enough, you don't just lose warmth, you lose rhythm. So the base has to create rhythm artificially. Strict routines, structured days, scheduled workouts, planned meals, because without discipline, the darkness starts winning. And then comes the second enemy. The one you can't outwork. The one you can't mindset away. Cold. The second enemy. Cold that changes the rules of being human. People throw around the word cold. They say freezing when it's slightly uncomfortable. But at Alert, cold isn't a vibe. Cold is a system that rewrites human behavior. Winter temperatures can sit around -40 degrees Celsius for extended periods. And the recorded extreme low reaches -50 degrees Celsius. At those temperatures, Your body isn't toughening up. Your body is negotiating survival. And it's not just the temperature, it's the wind. Because wind takes cold and turns it into urgency. There are days documented at Alert where the air temperature is around -45 and wind chill pushes the feels like down to -71. -71. At that point, the outside world isn't a place. It's a threat. A short walk becomes a calculation. A forgotten glove becomes a mistake. And a mistake can become a medical problem faster than you'd like to admit. So life at Alert becomes a set of rules written by the environment. Dress for worse than you think it will be. Assume the wind will change. Assume visibility can drop. Never treat a quick trip outside as harmless. And if you're wondering why anyone would live like this, here's the twist. The most terrifying part of Alert isn't the cold. It's the fact that survival depends on something that only happens a few times a year. A lifeline, delivered by aircraft. When the sky allows it. The lifeline. Operation Boxtop. Here's the truth that makes Alert feel like a thriller. This base survives on logistics. CFS Alert doesn't get weekly deliveries. It doesn't get casual shipments. It doesn't get, "we'll come back tomorrow." Major resupply is concentrated twice per year, typically spring and fall, through an operation known as Operation Boxtop. This is not a routine delivery. It's a massive logistical effort that can run around the clock during a narrow weather window, often over roughly 2 weeks, bringing in the fuel and supplies needed to keep the station alive through the harsh season. Aircraft like the CC-130J Hercules and the CC-177 Globemaster III are used to move what the station needs. And because Alert is so remote, operations often use a staging stop in Greenland, because even in the Arctic, you sometimes need a stepping stone to reach the edge of the world. Now listen carefully to the numbers. On average, Operation Boxtop moves roughly 375,000 kilograms of freight into the station, and about 1.8 million liters of fuel. That fuel isn't convenience. Fuel is heat. Fuel is power. Fuel is life. Because at Alert, if the power fails, the buildings don't get uncomfortable. They become refrigerators. So when Operation Boxtop is running, the base moves like a living organism. Everyone knows the stakes. Everyone knows what's arriving isn't just cargo. It's time. It's survival purchased in advance. And that leads to the most brutal question of all. What happens if the sky refuses? When the sky says no. In most places, storms are annoying. In the high Arctic, storms decide what's possible. Severe weather can roll in fast. Visibility can collapse into a white blur. Wind can pick up and turn the outside world into moving ice. And when that happens, aviation becomes a gamble you don't take. So imagine the pressure. A resupply window is open. Crews are prepared. Cargo is ready. Fuel is staged. The base is waiting. Then the wind changes. Visibility drops. Runway conditions shift. Now the aircraft has to decide, land or leave. And if it leaves, it may not get another safe chance for days. This is where the phrase "help can't reach you" becomes real. Because the base can be perfectly organized and still be powerless. Weather doesn't negotiate. Weather doesn't care that you need fuel. Weather doesn't care that you need supplies. Weather doesn't care that you miss home. Weather only cares about what it is. And if you live at Alert long enough, you learn a hard lesson. Control is an illusion. You don't control the environment. You prepare for it. You respect it. And you survive it. The human count, a tiny world of 55 people. Now let's talk about the people. Alert isn't a town. It's a small, rotating community. Roughly 55 full-time military and civilian personnel keep the station functioning. Many CAF members rotate through for about 6 months. Some roles rotate around 3 months, which means for most people, life at Alert is lived in a countdown. You arrive, you adapt, you endure, you leave, and in between, you learn what it means to live inside a bubble. A controlled human habitat surrounded by an uncontrolled world. That's why people compare places like this to a space station, not because it's glamorous, but because it forces your life into essentials. Work, sleep, food, fitness, routine. In a city, you have options. At Alert, your options shrink. And when your options shrink, your mind gets louder. Isolation, the silent pressure. Here's what most people don't understand about extreme places. The danger isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it's quiet. Isolation doesn't attack you like a monster. It attacks you like repetition. The same hallway, the same rooms, the same faces, the same darkness. Days start to blur. You begin to measure life in small things. A good meal, a message from home, a clear sky, a successful flight, a laugh that feels real. And because the outside world is so hostile, the inside world becomes everything, which means relationships matter more, routine matters more, discipline matters more. Because in a place like this, mental stability isn't nice to have. It's part of the survival kit. And then comes the part that surprises people. Even though Alert is a military station, the story here isn't about drama. It's about purpose. Why Alert exists. Purpose in the harshest place. Alert began in the early 1950s as a weather station, but it evolved. By the late 1950s, it took on an operational role tied to signals intelligence, maintaining facilities that support Canadian military operations. It also supports capabilities such as high-frequency direction finding, which can assist in operations like search and rescue. And Alert isn't only about military capability. The site is also connected to scientific work in the Arctic atmosphere, including operations associated with the Dr. Neil Trivett Global Atmosphere Watch Observatory. So, Alert is not just a base at the end of the world. It's a platform. A place where a few dozen people keep systems running that matter far beyond what you can see from a satellite image. And that's the part that deserves respect, because the real challenge isn't just doing your job. The real challenge is doing it while the environment is constantly trying to remind you how small you are. The outside, a world that punishes mistakes. There's a moment that every person at Alert learns early. The outside world doesn't forgive carelessness. In milder climates, you can make small mistakes and laugh them off. At Alert, the environment keeps score. Forget a layer and you feel it fast. Expose skin too long and you regret it fast. Underestimate wind and you learn a lesson fast. That's why movement outside the main camp area is treated with seriousness. Not fear, seriousness. Because fear can panic you, but seriousness keeps you alive. And the longer you live there, the more you understand. The base isn't in nature. The base is a defended pocket against nature. A human-made warm bubble in a region that does not want you. The moment that changes everything. The return of the sun. And then after weeks, after months, something happens that feels almost spiritual. The darkness changes. Not suddenly. Slowly, a faint glow appears where there used to be nothing. And at Alert, the return of the sun isn't just a sunrise. It's the world returning to its natural order. People who have never experienced long darkness don't understand how emotional light becomes when you've been without it. Because when the sun returns, it doesn't only brighten the sky, it brightens the mind. It reminds you that you endured something real. And it reveals a truth. You didn't just spend time at Alert. You survived a version of Earth most humans will never meet. The final truth, why this story matters. So, is CFS Alert the most isolated military base on Earth? It is certainly one of the most extreme, most remote, and most unforgiving places that is still permanently inhabited. A place where nature dictates schedules, where logistics replace convenience, where help is never as close as you wish it were. And that's exactly why we made this documentary. Because it proves something important. Modern comfort is not automatic. It's built. It's maintained. And sometimes it's maintained by a tiny group of people living in a place where the map looks empty, but the reality is heavy. At NK Oma Documentary TV, we bring these hidden worlds to light because the world is bigger than the places we usually talk about. And if you want more stories from the edge of the map, more places where survival is a system, then stay with us. Because next time, we go even deeper into the world's forgotten corners, where the land is silent, the sky is brutal, and human beings still choose to live and work anyway.